Yeah, welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast live. Yes. So I got some things I definitely wanted to talk about tonight, so I figured I'll hop on here and I'll do a live show and really get my thoughts out and also hopefully give an opportunity for whoever pops in to listen to the show and call in if they want to. But before we do that, you know what time it is. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't wait. What's going on, everybody? So thanks for popping in. Sneed, what's up, my man? Been looking out for you. Haven't seen you in the last few lives, but good to see you back in the chat, man. So if you're coming in, please, as I just mentioned in my little blurb there, make sure you're hitting that like button. It really helps us out a lot. And make sure you hit that share too. Share it out to other people you know that love sports talk and might want to hop in and add something to the chat or hear what I got to say. But you know what? Let's go ahead and let's get right to it, man. I'll go to the Boston Celtics. And here we go. Is it Jayson Tatum's time? That's the question we're going to ask tonight. Obviously, we're one day away from the beginning of the NBA Finals, and the Celtics they've been the favorite in the league all season long. One of the best offenses in NFL history in terms of efficiency and production. Now, again, you know what I always say, rules and the way the game is officiated, the way the game is played today, analytics, all that stuff plays a major part in that. So I take it with a grain of salt. But they won 64 games this season. They look really good. They're 12-2 in the playoffs so far. Of course, they dealt with in the East a lot of teams had injuries to key players, but you know, I always say that part of winning a championship is luck in terms of maybe somebody that would have given you trouble gets upset by someone who doesn't give you trouble. Maybe you run into the injury situation. Golden State's done that a few times and benefited from it. So all these things happen. And now the Celtics are on the precipice of championship banner number 18. They're going to play in the finals for the 23rd time all time, which is freaking crazy. And if they win this, that'll be their 18th championship, and they will break the deadlock with the Los Angeles Lakers, which I truly hope they do. But yeah, they've been the favorites all season long. And Jayson Tatum, he made all NBA first team, and he's a heck of a player, right? Uh, he averaged 27, 8 rebounds, 5 assists on 47% field goals and 38% from three this season, which are really good numbers. And Jayson Tatum now also is rapidly climbing up that Celtics great list, which is a very long list, right? And I've said this before. It's so wild to me how the Celtics keep managing to hit on that small forward position. You know, whether you got Hondo Havlicek or you got Larry Bird, and for a little while they had Pistol Pete at the end of his career, but he dealt with injuries. But yeah, you had Larry Bird, and then it was supposed to be Len Bias, and then the unfortunate overdose on cocaine on draft night. But he was going to be the next elite small forward. And then you had Reggie Lewis, and he passed away, but he was really good at the small forward position. And then comes Paul Pierce, another Hall of Famer at the small forward position. And now you have Jayson Tatum, who looks like the next great guy, right? And of course, you got his tag team partner, in Jaylen Brown. And, you know, you watch this team play and you watch those two play, and they're a great 1-2 offensively and defensively. Although I've said this before, they don't quite work in sync. They kind of work in like your turn, my turn. It's really weird. But they've been to the Eastern Conference Finals 6 times. They've been to the finals once, and they haven't brought home a trophy. And when you play for the Celtics, it's one of those places where the trophy is the only thing that matters, the championship, right? If you play for Alabama in college football or USC in college football or Notre Dame in college football, or you play for the Steelers or the 49ers or the Cowboys in and now the Chiefs or in the NFL, the only thing that matters is the championship at the end, right? All the other stuff, like it's cool, but it's just a step towards winning the ultimate goal, and that's the world championship. And so the Celtics are at that point now where they don't like conference banners don't mean anything, division banners don't mean anything. It's all about the Larry O'Brien and bringing home the trophy at the end. And so now Jayson Tatum he's the guy for this team, and he's got all the skills, but you worry like, is there something missing? I'm really not sure. But I mean, you watch this guy play, man, he's special. He's got the athleticism. I don't think he's got the elite super explosive athleticism, but he can handle the ball, he can pass the ball, he can shoot the ball. Um, but it's funny, his game is so smooth. He rarely looks like he can go into attack mode. He can get hot, like really hot and take over, but he doesn't look like he can attack like Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce could deliberately attack you. He could get into that mode and say, "All right, I'm about to dominate, and there's nothing you can do about it." And he's talking to you and all that. But Jayson Tatum, he just seems like a different type of dude. He's got all the skills. He's smooth. It's like it comes easy for him, and he can defend. Right? He's not going to be Meta World Peace or Meta Sanford Artest, I should say. I think that's the name. He's not going to be that on the defensive end, but he certainly can defend for this era. He really doesn't have a weakness. I just wish that he would get that dog mentality. I haven't seen that yet. Maybe this final series will be the time that it comes out. Who knows? But if he can win playing the way that he's been playing and he doesn't have to become that dog, then so be it, right? Jaylen Brown, his running mate, that guy's the dog, right? So he's a similar player to Tatum, but he's a different guy, right? He's more aggressive. When he came out of Cal, his whole thing was made on being a defender, and then he has developed his offensive game over the years, becoming a better mid-range shooter, better ball handler, better three-point shooter, not an elite ball handler. He has problems going left, and you'll hear Bob Ryan talk about that later in this segment. But he also can be a streaky shooter. He can give you 40, but he's not quite as skilled as Tatum. But I've said it time and time again, man. I watch these dudes, and if you could give Jayson Tatum with all his skills, if you could give him that aggressive mindset from Jaylen Brown, I think it'll be over. Whoa, whoa, what you guys need? Uh-oh. Oh, more talented than Paul Pierce? Ooh, I don't know. this this is a lifelong Celtics fan talking to you, man. I don't know, man. Paul Pierce was nasty, and he was on the low more athletic than people give him a lot of credit for. If we remember, Paul Pierce won the national high school dunk contest as a senior. He's more athletic than people give him credit for, and his skill set was crazy too. I think he was a better player in the post than Jayson Tatum is. Um, Jayson Tatum is probably the smoother shooter, but if you looked at the numbers for their career, it's probably about even from three. Paul Pierce, I think I'll probably take him in the mid range over Tatum. It's actually a very good comparison. I think I got Paul Pierce by a little bit, but again, that might be personal preference, and that might be just that he's more aggressive, and I prefer that. That's really good. That might be a topic that we need to do another day, comparing those two and which way would you go. But yeah, Jaylen Brown, he's that dude, man. So you look at the Celtics, especially Tatum and Brown, and you say maybe it's now or never, because if this doesn't work out, you're gonna have two guys making over 300 million, and it's like, okay, is somebody gonna need to go here, or are we gonna need to try and revamp this thing so we can actually win? And Tatum, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown, they don't just want to win a title, they need to win a championship. Remember earlier in this segment, I talked about the pressure of being a Celtics great and nothing else mattering but winning championships. They need to win a title. And the scary thing is these guys are still young. They're both still what? I think Tatum is 25 or 26. 26, I think. So they're still relatively young. And by that age, Michael Jordan hadn't won yet, but he spent more time in college. Both of those guys spent 1 year in college, but Michael Jordan hadn't won yet. Dream hadn't won yet. Shaq hadn't won yet. So it's a little different because all those guys spent more time in college. But the point is, they're still young and they can still do it. But you you got to win, man. You got to win when you wear that green and white. The pressure of being a Celtic and being a Celtic great, stats and awards don't do it for you for being a great in that uniform. It's like being a Laker, as much as I hate to compare it to being a Laker, but the standard is championships. If you want to get into that room, you gotta have all the numbers you want, but you got to get chips, right? And so if you can become a champion as the guy when you wear green, that pretty much also cements a Hall of Fame berth for you, right? Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that hard to make the Hall of Fame in basketball, but that pretty much locks you into a Hall of Fame berth, because now you're one of the best players on arguably the best franchise of all time, right? So if you lead them to a title, it puts you in a different place in terms of that all-time list. So now, earlier in the week, I was listening to The Odd Couple with Chris Broussard and Rob Parker on Fox Sports Radio, and that night, Ephraim Salaam was filling in for Rob Parker on the show with Chris Broussard. So let's hear their thoughts. They were actually discussing Jayson Tatum and what it would mean for his legacy and winning a championship and what he needs, etc.
If you look at his career, because remember, as a rookie and as a second year, they had been, deep runs in the playoffs, and everybody was waiting for him to say, ooh, in 2 years, he's going to take over the league. Well, we're still waiting.
Right.
These are the conversations we were having his rookie season. In 2 years, he's going to take over the league. We're still waiting for him to take over the league.
It's interesting because I agree with a lot of what you said. I think, one, if they don't win this championship, there will be real questions about, can he be the best player on the best team or the best player on a championship team? Like, there really will be the questions, because this is the year. They lost to Golden State, even though he got criticized for that. There's no shame in losing to Steph Curry and the now 4-time champions. If they had lost to Denver this year, it wouldn't have been any shame. It would have been disappointing, but you lose to Jokic, everybody would have been like, hey, you just ran into a juggernaut. Now, Dallas, which didn't even make the playoffs last year, which we get their reasonings, but still, Luka is younger than Jayson Tatum. It seem that way because Luka's been great for so long, but he's 25, Tatum's 26. OKC is going to be better. Minnesota's going to be better next year. Milwaukee and Philly will be back. Like, this is the year. You had the easiest path in NBA history.
Goodness gracious.
Right? No 50-win teams that they have to play. And even when they played those teams, they didn't have their best players for at least half the series. So it is all set up for you to win. So if you don't, you're going to have to wonder, okay, can Tatum lead us? And two, I don't think they would trade him, but do you look again at, okay, we'll at least listen to what teams are saying for Jaylen Brown or even maybe Tatum, but they may revamp. But I want to say this, Ephraim. I don't think, and you brought up kind of he could become a full-fledged superstar. I feel like, and I want to know if you agree or disagree, I feel like he doesn't get the level of respect that his accolades warrant. 3-time All-NBA, 5 times in the Eastern Conference Finals. People can say, well, he hasn't won yet. He's 26. Jordan, LeBron, Olajuwon, Shaq, they hadn't won at 26 either. So I kind of feel like he doesn't really get the full respect that he deserved. Like, they won 64 games. He's the best player. He doesn't even finish in the top 5 MVPs.
All right, so some really good topics, some really good points by these two, right? And so the first thing I want to touch on is that Ephraim Salaam was talking about how we are still waiting for Tatum to take over the league based on what we saw from him earlier. And I think that's fair because Giannis has won since he's been in the league. Jokic has won and won multiple MVPs. SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's now on the rise as a player. Ant-Man, he's on the rise. And so if one of these guys, not Jokic, because Jokic has already won in Giannis, but let's say Luka wins this finals or SGA wins the next one or Ant-Man or something like that. The question now is, in the minds of people, can Tatum catch up? And then also, these are all guys that have finished high in the MVP voting or have won MVP. So you have multiple factors that's getting in the way of Tatum taking over. And here's the other thing. It's not even just if Tatum wins a championship with the Celtics this year. I think for people to look at him the way that we want to look at him based on his skill set, I believe that he's a guy that has to he has to take over. He has to get busy. Maybe not dominate, not saying average 40 or 35, but he has to clearly be the guy, be the catalyst, and be the guy, the reason that they win this championship this year. And so the second part, when Chris Broussard was asking the question about the respect factor, is he getting enough respect that he deserves, or Broussard thinks that he's not getting enough respect? Well, that's simple because I talked about that earlier in this segment. He must win. At the end of the day, he must win. He's not playing for OKC. He's not playing for Minnesota. He's not playing for Sacramento. He is playing for the Boston Celtics. When you play for the Celtics, you play for the Lakers, and now maybe the Spurs. The only thing that matters are championships. You're on that level in those programs. So he has to win. That's why he's not getting the quote unquote respect that you think he should deserve, because he hasn't won yet. And yeah, he's young. He's still only 26, but he has 6 trips to the Eastern Conference Finals. So now the question is, at what point do you break through? You're not 26 still trying to, scratch and claw and climb the mountain. You've been to the mountaintop. Well, not to the mountaintop. You've been almost to the mountaintop, right? So the question is, at what point are you going to get the job done? At what point are you going to go all the way up and plant your flag? This is your second time in the finals. You got to get it done. And when you get it done, Chris Broussard knows this. He's covered the league for over 30 years. When he gets it done, he will get said respect that he's due. He is a Boston Celtic. That's not like being anyone else other than a Laker. That's just what it is. He has to win. When he wins, all that is taken care of. If he wins and he's the guy, all that is taken care of. All right. So before we finish up with this topic, let's also hear from legendary longtime sports writer for the Boston Globe, Bob Ryan. This is a guy who's been around so much Boston greatness from, I want to say he was an intern with the Boston Globe in the 60s. So, he saw the end of the dynasty with the great Mr. Russell. He saw, Dave Cowens and Hondo Havlicek in the mid 70s. Obviously, he saw Larry Bird and McHale and Bill Walton and those guys, Robert Parrish in the mid 80s. And then, of course, the big three, Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen. And now he's watching this. So let's hear what he had to say about it.
Well, one of the problems when you come along in Boston is that you're now bucking the history. You're now being thrust into the history. Of course, we've had some duos, of course, starting out with Cousy and Russell, and later Cowens and Havlicek, shall we say, and of course Bird and McHale. But Parrish makes 3. Yeah, and now the latest one, of course, when the championship was Garnett and Pierce and Allen. Okay, Garnett and Pierce. They're making their mark there. They need a ring that fully enter into the discussion. But but the Tatum, particularly his historical ranking. We've got our Rushmore or all-time 5 kind of thing going, and he's knocking on the door to get included in that all-time 5 thing. There's no doubt. They're not the same player. They're different. He and Brown. I think they've become very complementary. That's what an E as well as I. And it's a formidable duo, and they can go out and get you 60, and they've done it. More than once. They've each had 30-point games. Tatum has made himself into a pretty damn good defender. Brown, originally, that was his calling card. And he's back playing the way he once played defense. The big problem with Brown has been ball handling and turnovers and bad judgment and dribbling into crowds. And he doesn't go to his left particularly well even now. But boy, does he go to his right strong. And he's a great finisher. And his three-point shooting has gotten better. In the current NBA, they're in the discussion as the best duo, and 64 wins is certainly a testament to that. And you're right. Your skepticism is warranted. That's still the story here. Until they do it, the people are not fully buying into any historical greatness or anything like that until they win a championship, until they you have to figure somewhere along the way you're going to have to do it in the finals by winning a close game. You're not going to win 4 games by 20. That final exam, it's a final exam. And we'll see how they pass. It's pass fail.
All right, so we heard what Bob Ryan had to say, and I think there's very few people who know Boston Celtics basketball who obviously didn't suit up for the Celtics any better than Bob Ryan does. And so I'll pretty much leave it there. It's pass or fail, and that's what it is, man. You play for that organization, that's it. There's pass or fail.